This is Poor News Network. My name is Ecstasine, and I am your life preserver. I want to preserve your life. There's a storm coming. Here I am. I invite you to save yourself. Breathe all my air with an oral kiss, and let me guide you through the sounding deep. Our Poor magazine visit to the Hamptons had me reflecting on the courage it takes to do small things. When we arrived in Southampton, the town felt empty, as if we had ridden in on the tail end of an apocalyptic event. There was this flatness to the streets, low-key and frightening as a moan. Also, a daytime TV homogeneity that to me screamed bastion of middle-class Anglo-suburbia, with all the horror that such a scene implied. A few of our party had to take some personal needs involving urination. Sorry, 3, 2, 1. A few of our party had to take care of some personal needs involving urination, so we stopped at a tiny diner, cafe, on the main drag, the first place we'd come across that contained living people. This diner had a lot of what we assumed were residents of the town seated in there. We had no idea if these folks were the house-rich mansioneers we had traveled all the way from California to call into the movement, or if they were some sort of working-class townies that we hoped might be our natural allies. I could not help but note how very quiet the little dining room got when we walked through the front door. Everyone has experienced this. Everyone has felt like being an outsider in some point in their lives. Whether in a major city or a highway rest stop, being alone has never been a requirement for being isolated. The Hamptons is a cluster of towns and villages in upstate New York, well known in literature and visual media, dating back more than a century as a vacation enclave for some of the most ridiculously privileged of East Coast society. The town had been founded in the mid-17th century when English colonizers spread upstate from Massachusetts, looking for more land to take. The Shinnecock were native residents of this land. When the colonizers came, the Shinnecock, with a generosity typical of some of the original residents of American soil, taught the colonizers how to survive off the bounty of the land by whaling. Now, of course, the Shinnecock Reservation is New York State's geographic version of Swaziland. It is an indigenous economic and political island of working poor, and outright poverty-stricken brown people surrounded on 3 sides by affluence and 1 side by the Hampton Bay. Southampton's Chamber of Commerce prefaces the informational booklet that they put out with an explanation of how Shinnecock ancestral land passed into European hands that is truly a masterpiece of sanitization. Quote, "The settlers were told by James Ferret, acting as the attorney for the Earl of Stirling, that they must buy their new lands from the Shinnecock. This they did and arranged for settlement in an area now called Old Town, about 3/4 of a mile east of the present main street of Southampton Village," unquote. In his review of the book, How the Indians Lost Their Land, Law and Power on the American Frontier, Stephen Banner, historian Eric Foner, yes, some dude I found on the internet, but that doesn't mean he's wrong, writes, quote, "Banner is quite correct to note that even after decisive military victories, Americans went through the process, or perhaps it's better to say the charade, of signing treaties that made land transfers appear to be mutually agreed transactions. This obsession with trying to reconcile conquest with legal procedures cries out for an explanation, but it should not disguise the fact that it was conquest all the same," unquote. Calvin Klein has a vacation house on the beach there in Southampton, right across the bay from the res. A ridiculously egregious example of how the Shinnecock people live, cheek by jowl, with a present-day manifestation of a history of marginalization. Walking into that diner full of toothy white people made me afraid. I got scared. I was a black woman in a town where the price of a house averaged $8.5 million, surrounded by folks who all looked like they'd stepped out of a J. Crew catalog. I thought about how, for a member of the Shinnecock Nation, waking up each day in this town must be a small exercise in courage. This is Poor Magazine. I have been Ecstasine, preserving your life. Until next time.